Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Market to Mealtime winter season. My name is Piali Callahan. I'm an instructor and research specialist here at Miller Branch, and I'm joined by my co-worker, Nancy Target. In this class, our much-loved SNAP-Ed educator, much-loved SNAP-Ed educator Razan Sahuri will take us, virtually of course, to her kitchen to show us some healthy recipes with ingredients that are easily found during winter season. This material was funded by USDA Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, in cooperation with Maryland's Department of Human Services and University of Maryland Extension. This institution is an equal opportunity provider. Now, before the presentation by Razan, we just wanted to say a few words about her. Razan Sahuri works at the University of Maryland Extension. She is Howard County's Maryland SNAP-Aid and Nutrition educator. Razan holds a bachelor's degree in nutrition and dietetics and a master's degree in public health. Through her work with UME, Razan partners with Howard County Public School System, Head Start Centers, and the Howard County Food Bank to deliver nutrition education to students, parents, and teachers. These collaborations also involve leveraging resources between Maryland SNAP-Ed and local community agencies to facilitate greater access to and availability of healthy food options and influence the adoption of policy, systems, and physical environment changes related to a healthier lifestyle. So with that, I pass it along to Razan and we go into her kitchen.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me, and thank you for everybody that's attending. Today is our last session for this year, and we were saying we cannot believe it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and please let me know if you happen to see it. So a couple of months ago, we talked about what's in season in the fall, where we can get it, the farmers markets that are local to us. And this time we're going to talk about what's in season during winter, or what's available for us during winter. So we're going to first discuss the different forms of fruits and vegetables. So usually in the past, I've talked about fresh. So today we're going to talk about canned as well, and frozen. We're going to talk about how we can incorporate those in our daily meals. And then how do we choose these frozen canned goods, or canned produce, or frozen canned, whether fruits or vegetables. And then we're going to tap a little bit into reading the labels, and then how to compare prices. And then finally, I'm going to do 3 quick food demos that are yummy. I'm already smelling some of the things and I'm getting hungry. And then we're going to open it up for questions and answers. But with that said, you can ask anytime. You can write it in the chat, or if you'd like, you can unmute yourselves and ask. So we're going first to start with how can you incorporate produce into your daily diets. So usually when we talk about fruits and vegetables, the best case scenario, let's say, is to try and have fruits and vegetables throughout the day in all our meals, if we can. And when we talk about winter time, sometimes we cannot find produce that is local, that is close by, that is fresh, but that does not mean that our meals should not have produce in them. So one way around that is to get canned fruits and vegetables, or frozen fruits and vegetables. So if you have fresh, that's fine. If you have frozen, that's also great. Or if you have canned, or you can mix and match. So we're going to go through the different meals of the day and just, brainstorm ideas on how we can add more fruits or vegetables to those meals. So the first is breakfast, my favorite. And the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about is basically your basic pancake or waffle mix that you make for breakfast. You can add something fresh to it, let's say like a mashed banana, or you can add something like frozen berries, Or you can add like canned pumpkin, especially right now around the holidays where we might use canned pumpkin for other recipes, and we'll end up with a little bit of, canned pumpkin. You can use that in your batter to make your pancakes or waffles. And then instead of your syrup, maple syrup, whatever that you use, you can also use applesauce, which is, a form of apples instead of, it's not fresh apples, but it's preserved apples in a way in a jar. You can always make a smoothie. And for a smoothie, you can use fresh, canned, or frozen, or combination. And you can make that with your choice of milk, water, 100% juice. You can add vegetables to it as well. And today I'm going to show you a great recipe. And then one of the easiest things you can also make is to make a parfait, where you can layer granola or even any cereal you have with fruit. And the fruit, it can be fresh again, or it can be canned. Frozen, I actually know a couple of people that enjoy frozen fruits in their parfait because it gives it like that extra, I don't know, cold feeling, but I don't know if that's something you would enjoy. So I would say maybe only canned or fresh, or you can, experiment. And then you can top that with your favorite yogurt. And that also works as dessert or as a snack. All of these, I feel like they work as a snack as well. Moving along, so let's talk about lunch. So usually when we talk about lunch, and of course, these also work for other meals. So this might work for dinner. For example, if you make a green salad, you can always add some canned fruit to it, like mandarin oranges or pineapples, something like that. It's so easy to do, just to add it, and it'll add a new flavor to your dish. You can also make a bean wrap. So let's say you want to take some sort of sandwich to work in a way. You can make a bean wrap. You can, of course, add, different vegetables like lettuce, tomatoes. You can add cheese if you like, and you can make your, a wrap out of it. And then finally, you can also make a salad. So usually when we think of canned or frozen, we think of them as we can substitute our fresh with canned or frozen, except for, something that is fresh, like a salad, because it affects the flavor. Usually, when we can our goods or our produce or we freeze it, it affects the texture, it affects the flavor a little bit. So usually, we don't do something that is considered fresh. We use it in other ways. But you can also make a salad out of your canned goods. So what you can do is you can just add, for example, a can of your green beans with a can of any beans, say kidney beans together, slice an onion, and then add your favorite Italian dressing, and you have a salad. And that's super easy, super quick. It's something, that you can also make on the go. And then we have dinner. With dinner, you can use frozen or canned in any of your soups, stews, casseroles. So think of it the way you would use your fresh, you would use your canned, or you can also use it as a side dish. So say, for example, you're roasting a chicken. You can roast a chicken and then have your canned vegetables or frozen vegetables sauteed or cooked next to it. So that's something also that's very easy, to make, where it's just a side, or you can incorporate it in your dishes. And then finally, and I'm sorry if I've been talking very quickly, but today we have a lot of things I'm trying to cover. Dessert or snack and dessert. So the first one is the, instead of a complete yogurt parfait, we're going to remove the cereal from it, or the granola. So it's the fruit and the yogurt. And let's all pretend that this is yogurt on the picture, because I could not find yogurt with fruit. And then the second thing that you can use is also think of hummus, for example. Hummus is mashed garbanzo beans. You can also mash black beans or anything, turn it into a paste. You can add any of the seasonings you like, and then you can just dip it with your whole grain crackers or vegetables. So, you have a savory option and you have a sweet option. Any questions so far?
We don't have any questions, but we do have some people that love, we have Jessica loves frozen blueberries as a snack.
Oh, nice.
Piali uses the triple berry frozen and also frozen green beans. I like to use frozen broccoli and stir fry, and we're trying to have everybody else see what kind of frozen fruits and vegetables they use.
Yes, if they can tell us, that would be great. So yes, I love frozen cherries as a snack as well. So Jessica, I hear you. So we're going to the grocery store. We want to get vegetables and fruits, but we're trying to get them, as canned or frozen. What do we do? So when we go to the grocery store, there's a plethora of options over there. Sometimes it gets overwhelming. So the first thing, the most important thing that we can do is read the label. The label tells us exactly what's in that can or that bag. Usually when we go buy fresh produce, we know that it's broccoli. It's a head of broccoli. We can see it, we buy it, that's it. But when we're trying to buy, let's say, frozen broccoli, as the example here, there's different things. So we always like to watch out for things that are added to our food. And there are three things that are, the three musketeers that are not really that great. So we have the salt, fat, and sugar. And usually, sometimes you might find one of them added into that product, sometimes two, sometimes all three of them. So it's worth reading the labels, comparing the labels as well. So we have the ingredient list and we have the nutrition fact label. Usually they're next to each other. So if we take this broccoli, for example, this is frozen broccoli. The first one on the left, you'll see in the ingredient list, it tells you broccoli. So it's just broccoli. They take the broccoli, they freeze it. Just like if you went to the farmer's market and you bought broccoli and you have excess broccoli and you freeze it. It's the same thing. That's it. The second one, which is the lower one to the right, it's frozen broccoli with cheese sauce. So there's something added to it. There is the cheese sauce. And if you look at the ingredients, it's a pretty hefty, list. There's so many things we can read, some things we cannot read, which makes it even, more challenging. And then when we compare the nutrition fact label, if we start with the calories, for half a cup, so we're comparing apples to apples, half a cup of broccoli to half a cup of broccoli. The first has 15 calories, the second has 45 calories. So the calories are higher. If you look at the saturated or the total fat, if you look at the sodium, you can see the difference in sodium, which is a lot, from 15 grams to 380 milligrams. So it's a lot, the difference is, it's not minute. And then if you look at even the sugars, the broccoli, since it's a vegetable, it has natural sugars. So it has 1 gram, but then in the other example, there's 3 grams. So there's also more sugar and it's added sugar. So that's something to keep in mind. Always look at the label, especially for things that are, for vegetables, try to see things that say no salt added or no salt. And then the other example is fruit. So when we're trying to buy fruit, the same thing goes. So try and buy something that's either the fruit itself, like when it's frozen, let's say it's only sliced peaches, or if it's canned in either water or 100% fruit juice. Because when I was trying to put this example for you, I found 5 different examples of things. So the first one here is heavy syrup. And when we say syrup, we know it's sugar. So if you look at the ingredient list, you'll see high fructose corn syrup, which is another word for sugar, and sugar. The other example here, it says no sugar added. So what does that mean? It doesn't mean that it's pure peaches and that's it. Sometimes, especially with fruits, some artificial sweeteners are added to make it sweet without adding the calories or the sugar. So this might be more acceptable, let's say, for somebody that's diabetic, that's trying to have canned goods, but they're trying to stay away from sugar. But keep in mind that it has artificial sweeteners that are not the healthiest, or they're not the greatest option. And then when we look at our third can, it says peaches and 100% juice. And this is the healthiest option in this situation. Although if you compare calories, it might have more calories than the no sugar added, because the 100% juice, it's juice, it has natural sugars in it. So it might have higher calories. But if you look at the ingredient list, it does not have the artificial sweeteners. And that's something, it's great if we can stay away from it if we don't need it. Any questions so far?
No, but we did have a vote for canned corn and salads to add crunch and bright color from Pam.
Ooh, nice, yes. Canned corn is great. And one of our recipes today has canned corn, so stay tuned. The last thing I want to talk about is comparing prices. So usually produce that is in season, fresh produce that is in season, is more accessible, it's cheaper. In the winter, we don't have a lot of fresh produce, especially here in Maryland, unless it's grown in a greenhouse or something, but naturally speaking, we don't have our farmers markets are closed, especially the ones in the county. So both county farmers markets, the Sunday market and the Wednesday markets are closed. I don't know if anybody knows of any markets that are open in Howard County during the winter, not to my knowledge. The only place that I'm thinking about is the Roving Radish has a Roving Radish marketplace, and we can put the address in the chat, where they work with some local farmers. So for example, this week, I know they have fresh kale because kale is still in season. I don't know what happens to their marketplace throughout. It's open all year long, but then they add different, so they have meats, they have eggs, they have things other than produce. But if you want something that's local, close by, you can, check them out. So when we go to the grocery store, because things are not in season, the price might be higher. So buying, canned or frozen might be a great alternative because it's cheaper. But then when we're trying to buy canned or frozen, we should also compare them together to make sure we're buying the cheapest option, or the option that we feel is the most suitable for us. So there's a couple of things that are worth considering. When you're comparing prices, make sure you're comparing apples to apples. And what that means is, even if you're comparing, let's say this example has pears. So let's say we're comparing fresh pears to canned pears to frozen pears, all right? Make sure you're comparing ounces, for example, or number of pieces, or so it's the same comparison. So for example, the example that we have in front of us, it's canned pears. There are 2 cans. On the right, it's 28 ounces. On the left, it's 16. So they're not the same size. When we're looking at the price, one is $1.35, the other is $1. If you look at it very quickly, you would assume that the 28 ounce one is more expensive because it is more expensive. It's $1.35. So there's 35 cents extra. But then if you look at the unit price, that, orange square, it will tell you what is, first of all, their unit in this case is an ounce. So if we're trying to compare, we need to compare ounces to ounces. So when we look at both cans in terms of ounces, you'll realize that it is cheaper by $0.02. So sometimes when it's bigger, it's cheaper, but then you need to make sure that you don't buy it because it's cheaper and then end up throwing it because you're not using all of it. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're buying, let's say, a can of pears and you use part of it, think of what you're going to do with the rest. So once the can is open, any can is open, you should remove what's inside in a container, a closed container, and you can put it in the fridge for up to 2 days. So that's just something, to think about to reduce waste, because if you end up wasting it, you're paying more for it. So yeah, with that said, I'm going to move into our 3 recipes. Let me stop sharing. Any questions so far?
Jessica has commented that with the rising prices of food items, that unit pricing has become her best friend in looking and choosing what to buy with all the amount of options that are out there. So thank you so much, Razan, for that reminder.
That's great. Sorry, I went and I grabbed some of the things I need for the class. I did not take them out of the freezer ahead of time. So today we're making 3 recipes. And let me turn on my camera. See. So the recipes that, oh, perfect. I'm just opening my my recipes to make sure I cover everything. So 3 of these recipes, one of them is a winter harvest soup. So it's something that is already in season. It's perfect for this time of year. The other is a summer recipe, and I wanted to show you how we can substitute fresh produce with either canned or frozen, and then a smoothie. The first recipe, which is the winter harvest soup, we're going to start with it because it needs some time, but then we're going to go back and forth between all recipes. So I'm going to turn on my stove, and I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of oil. So what I did today is I divided the recipe into half. I prepared half of it so I can show it to you, and then we're going to make the half together. So for the winter harvest soup, we're going to, you're receiving those recipes, so you don't have to take notes or anything. But for the recipe, you need 1 medium onion. This is half of the onion because I prepared half of it. 1 garlic clove. So I'm just dividing it by half right now. A pound of acorn squash, peeled, seeded, and cut into small pieces. And this is 1 acorn squash, so this is half of it. You can use butternut squash. You can use any squash. If it's still in season, you know, you can use it fresh. If you bought and froze, you can use it frozen, or you can buy frozen from the grocery store. Kale, and kale is still in season at this point. So it's 1 bunch that the ribs removed and leaves torn. If you have kids, they can help you, you know, tear the leaves. That's one thing you can do with them. It's a task to give them. And then we're going to use 5.5 cups of broth. So you can low sodium broth. And I'm using chicken broth, but you can use any broth. And then we're using 1 can of white beans, and then some fresh thyme. But since fresh is not in season, maybe now, you know, you can use dry instead of fresh. So I'm going to start by adding the garlic and onions to our pot. And until they're cooked, I'm going to move into our second recipe. Today, it's a little bit crazy back and forth. I apologize. All right, so until the onions need 3 minutes. So until they're done, we're going to work on our smoothie. So our smoothie, it's really nice. You can use any fruit, you have at home. For that recipe, we're going to use, we're going to use 1 banana. So the banana is fresh. I think that's the only fresh thing that we're going to use in this recipe. So I'm just gonna break it. And then 1 cup of pineapple. So the pineapple, you can use fresh, you can use frozen, you can use canned, and I'm using canned. So we're mixing fresh, canned, and frozen in this recipe. So this is the pineapple, and I drained it. I used the juice for something else. Okay, this is sizzling, so it's working. And then 1 cup of frozen strawberries, and then 1 cup of frozen raspberries. And instead of buying, you know, a cup of each, I just got a mix of berries. So it has more things, and we need basically 2 cups of that. Any questions so far? And of course, because I'm doing this live, it's not opening. Okay, I'm just gonna cut this.
We don't have any questions, but we are all getting hungry.
I'm so glad. So we have, so I'm just to measure. You can eyeball it if you like. So we have our berries. And then we're adding 1 cup of milk. I'm using almond milk. You can use any milk you like, or you can use water, whatever you like. And I'm going to put this on the blender. I'm going to mute myself so you don't have to listen to it being blended. And I'll be back in a minute. All right, so this is blended and I'll show you the results in a bit. But meanwhile, I'm going to go back to my soup and I'm going to add the kale. So I'm adding the kale and the beans. Because the kale, as you know, it needs some time to wilt.
Razan, there's a question. How many smoothies does the recipe make?
So if you follow the exact ingredients, let me check for you right now. It says 2 servings. But I would think, depending on how big the cup that you're using, because there's a lot of ingredients in it. And I forgot to mention, you can also add vegetables to it. So I'm going to add spinach to it, just to add an extra food group.
We also, Razan, have the suggestion that you could add kale to that smoothie as well. Some of that kale if you were making the recipe.
So that was our original plan, to use the kale since we already have a lot of kale, but then I had some extra baby spinach. That's why I use it. So any greens you have. Yes, I see Pam saying Swiss chard and that also works. So I added I added my kale and beans and I'm waiting for them to wilt before I add the broth. And with that, I'm going to move into, oh, and I forgot to add the butternut squash as well. The last recipe, which is super easy, it's called Mexican Veggie Bake, and it's perfect in the summer because it asks for zucchinis, it asks for bell peppers. So it's perfect, if you have a garden or if you go to the farmer's market. But with that said, you can still make it in the winter. But all you have to do is substitute. So what we're going to do for that recipe, so you need 2 zucchinis, but I'm using frozen zucchinis. 1 green or red bell pepper washed. I'm just using frozen, and I got the one with onions just because I like onions. And then a can of corn and a can of beans. And again, because corn is, if you have fresh corn in the summer, you can do that. But in the winter, you can use canned, beans and corn. And then salsa. So I'm using salsa. And that's it. And then we can top it off with cheese and tortilla chips. So what you're going to do, which is so easy, you're going to add your zucchini. and they're frozen. You don't even need for them to thaw. So this is a great recipe if you're in a hurry. So you're going to add your zucchini, your bell peppers. Oops. And then you're going to add corn. And kids can help because it's super easy. All you're doing is actually dumping ingredients, as you can see. And then you're going to add salsa to it. And you know, if you like it spicy, you can get the salsa that is spicy. And you're going to mix all of that together. And they can also help you mix. All right. And then you're going to get your baking dish. And you're going to spray it. You can spray it if you have spray. If not, you know, you can dab some oil. You're going to add that mix into your baking dish. And you're going to bake it at 400 degrees for, the recipe asks for 20 minutes. I would say 25 just because it's frozen. So we're going to put it in there for 20, oh, cover it in foil. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. So I'm going to cover it in foil. Oh, look at the surprise, it's done. So I'm glad we have this little bit. And you're going to put it in the oven for 20 to 25 minutes. Once it's done, you're going to take it out and you are going to mix 1 cup of cheese. And I use cheddar cheese with tortilla chips. And all I did was I broke the tortilla chips into smaller pieces. And that's a good stress reliever. Trust me, if you had a bad day, doing this helps. It's like a stress ball, or you can let kids do it. So you break it down, you mix them together, and you top your pan, and then you can bake it for 10 to 15 minutes uncovered, and you'll get this little thing over here. It smells so good, and it's so healthy. I'm going back to my soup very quickly. I'm going to add the broth, and I'm going to add my herbs, but you can use, as I said, dried herbs. So once you put your broth, you can leave it there for 12 minutes, 12 to 15 minutes, and it will be done. So now let me show you the end results for everything. Any questions?
None yet.
Our green smoothie or purple smoothie. And that's great for breakfast. Yeah, it would make 2 cups. 1.5 from these, I think. You can freeze the rest of the smoothie if you like. So this is our smoothie. I love the color with the cutting board. And then the bake, the Mexican bake. And this is a great example. If you have a recipe that requires, you know, a lot of fresh produce, all you have to do is just substitute it with canned or, you know, with frozen or a mix. Let's see. And you can serve this by itself, or you can serve it with rice on the side, or, you know, any way you like. And kids would like it because it has the crunch, the cheese. So this is our second recipe. All right. And then our third recipe. Okay, hold on. Sorry, we're a little bit late today. Is the soup that I prepared. ahead of time. So that's the other half of the recipe. Let me tell you, I made this, I think 2 weeks ago for another class, and we ended up devouring it afterwards. It's so good. So you can, and if you like to add leftover chicken to it or turkey, if you still have some, you can absolutely do that. So this is our winter harvest soup, and you can top it with a little bit of Parmesan cheese. It gives it a nice kick if you don't want it, you don't mind it being vegetarian. So yeah, here you get it. Here you got it. 3 different recipes. We have the smoothie, a casserole, which is our veggie bake, Mexican veggie bake, and our winter harvest soup. And with that, I'm going to stop my camera. Any questions?
We do have a comment that everything looks amazing and delicious.
Thank you.
And we are all set for a healthy winter season, food-wise.
Yes, and please, if you try those recipes, let me know. You can, send me what works, what doesn't work, or send me a picture. I'd love to hear from you. You're receiving the recipes so you can try them at home, at your own leisure.
Razan, we do have a question from Nancy. Can you freeze the soup?
Absolutely. You can freeze the soup. You can make it, wait until it's cooled. You can either put it in plastic bags, freezer bags, or I need to show you, because I'm on a freezer spree myself. I got those containers, like the takeout containers, but you don't have to. You can put them in, any bags you have, freezer bags or containers that are freezer safe. Or if you get takeout, you can save those and use them as well. And then once you're ready to eat it, you can either thaw it in the fridge and then heat it, or you can just dump it in your pot and let it melt a little bit. Or you can put it, open some warm water on it from the outside until it, loosens up, and then you can put it in your pot and heat it. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Perfect.
And
Are there any more questions for Razan? Now we're all hungry after looking at those delicious food. I want that smoothie right now.
You know what? I was eyeing that too as well. Okay, that's a good snack.
Yeah.
Yes, and then I'm saving the soup and the Mexican bake for later, for dinner.
For dinner, your dinner is made. That's
And
what I was
they're so
thinking.
quick. As you saw, it didn't really take time. What takes
Yeah.
time is the baking. It takes 20 minutes, and then just waiting on the soup to get cooked. So get infuse the flavors, but it's done.
Right.
Anyway, thank you so
Yeah.
much. Happy holidays to everyone,
Happy
and Happy
holidays.
New Year. And we'll see you in the new year.
Yes, and I'm going to stop recording. Have a great holiday, everyone.